Okay, so I am back to this painting after a couple weeks. It's all dry. Um, and I'm at one of those points as an artist, crossroads, where I'm not sure what to do next. I am not satisfied with it to say it's done, but it's getting close. And there's a few things that bother me still. This originally started as a color experiment. I was really interested in a previous painting. I was using a lot of ultramarine blue, which is this really bright blue color. And I was liking the effects I was getting, but it was a minor part of the painting. So I thought, remember years ago I did an ultramarine painting that I really, really loved. And so I thought I'm gonna do that again. Sometimes that's where the urge for a particular painting comes from. And so I wanted this to be a blue painting. I'm not usually very monochromatic. I like the tension between colors. But I was trying to keep it in the blue tones with this yellow-green highlight, which is just one of my favorite colors. I love that, like bright chartreuse color. So it has, I don't know, probably 10 layers on it, 8-10 layers. A lot of little detail work I did last time, but it needs something. So I have decided to be brave and do a ultramarine wash over most of it. Not all of it, but most of it, and rag it off to give it a little texture. And what this will do is kind of seal all the layers. I'm really close to done, and it all needs to kind of, these top layers and the greenish colors are sitting on top of the ultramarine, and I want to merge them, blend them, sandwich them. And again, because I use thin layers, it's the color goes through all those layers and reflects back. So that's what gives it that luminosity. So one can easily screw this up and get it too dark and muddy. So it's a bit of a risk. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm determined that this is the course of action I want to take. So with that long introduction of what I'm going to do, I got a well-worn round brush, filbert brush, and I am just going to use my glaze with not a lot of ultramarine, but just a tint of it almost, so very, very thin, and selectively wash it over the whole thing, deciding where I want to keep the top layers still on top, if that makes sense. So it's a very delicate process. It's not just throwing it on and seeing what happens. I'm being very selective. And this also has the ability to make things look like they're in the distance. So it kind of gives it some depth that it's just lacking because of all the layers on top. And there's different ways to get layers in oil painting, working wet on wet, letting things dry. So it's one of the things I love about oil painting is you can do so much with it. It's so versatile, but it can also, you have to learn its tricks, or you can end up with a big muddy mess, which is usually when people try to oil paint the first time. It's kind of where everyone ends up, but you don't know where that muddy mess is until you do it. So it's just failure when you try new things is going to be part of it, and you just move through it, get through it, learn, figure out what you're doing wrong, pay attention to the effects, apply a little scientific method there, and learn what you're doing, and learn what you like to do too. I think that's the other thing. So often we want people's approval. It's very hard in the studio to kind of tune everything out and just say, you know, this is what I'm going to do, and we'll see how it goes. And I always tell people, at the very least, you can burn it, destroy it, no one ever has to see it. That's important, I think, to experiment, especially, again, as you're learning techniques. And different mediums. I also am interested, so many people do digital art now and they've never actually used the actual real paints. And I think that that's a missed opportunity if you want to become really good at your craft. I would suggest, if you do digital art, experimenting at the very least. I mean, they might turn out being totally crappy paintings, but I think you'd better understand the effects that the software is trying to create for you. That is, unless you just plan on having AI do your job for you, which I think is sad and a really bad idea as we move forward to. I just don't understand this idea that let's just get rid of all work. Like, work is a bad thing. This is work. I like working. I just am very particular about the work I want to do. And of course, we all need to survive. Not everyone works for the money. That is, part of it. We all have to survive. But I think a lot of people that I know anyways, be perfectly fine with just some stability and some opportunity. And otherwise, people like to work. I think we've prioritized leisure as a reward because we've been expected to, over generations, to just work mindlessly. We didn't have a lot of opportunity, and I think we live in an age where there's incredible opportunity because of technology. But I sometimes think that the people designing the technology don't really understand people, or history for that matter. And again, I try to get the edges. I like these wrapped canvases because I don't have to worry about framing. And I like the kind of three-dimensional effect of them on the wall. But I have also learned that it's best to keep up on the edges as you go rather than try to go back and piece them back in. So just making sure there's some wash over there. Keep it in the loop. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been a little more selective around these greenish yellow forms of putting the paint on here. So these are the areas I kind of want to keep bright and on top, but I want to blend them kind of like they're fading into the background a bit too. Give them a little more depth. Bring that bright dark blue that started this whole experiment back to the forefront. I think that was part of what was missing for me, is it was supposed to be an ultramarine painting and ultramarine blue painting, and I kind of got away from that. So okay, I'm going to get close here. This is actually quite an old used brush, so it's not very fine in terms of its details. It's actually leaving marks everywhere, but I kind of like those marks, so artist's choice. The marks are there because I want them to be there. Okay, so now I'm going to take a rag, something that does not have a bunch of other paint on it that will get on this one, but I am just going to blot the painting. I sometimes start with the edges again, just to get a bit of the paint off and keep it off my hands as much as possible. A lot of times if it's, well, I already have it on my hands. Oh well, lost cause now. But I just want to go in, actually I don't want to use this rag because it is very dusty. I want to use this. Okay, this is how dust ends up in my paintings, so it's part of the process. So I'm just kind of rolling. This thing's really dusty too. What am I missing here? I'll use this one. I'm just using this to kind of take a bit of the paint off and blend it in. The glaze will leave kind of like a varnish effect on top, except where I just kind of gently remove it. So it leaves a bit of a texture pattern. But that's all I really wanted, was a bit of highlight and shadow. And then we'll take a, let's see here, what is this? Number 6 filbert, just small, soft brush, and kind of go back in some of these details. The other thing I can do is add a little solvent that will take off this blue that I just added. And I can kind of pick out what I just covered up if I want to, and bring those highlights back up. And use the rag. I like seeing the whole painting, that's why I don't put it down in the trough, but it of course falls, which is annoying. Okay, so I kind of like this. I'm happy that I did it. It definitely gave me the effect I wanted. And again, this is the only way to know the effect you will probably get is to try it and see what happens. And if you screw it up, at least you know whatever it is you did, what the effect is. Again, be a bit scientific about it as you develop your techniques and keep track if you want to improve. If you're just out there having fun, then do you. But if you are trying to develop techniques, don't give up just because it's hard. Nobody, rarely, very rarely does anyone just pick anything up and be extremely, extremely good at it. And if you are, you're probably neurodivergent. So yeah, that was kind of really all I wanted to do with this layer. Again, it's supposed to be a French ultramarine painting. Really, the whole movement thing was also kind of experimenting with the patterns and how I could get different kind of swirling pattern motion. People have gotten feedback, they've said it looks like flowers, like a lotus, kind of underwater. It looks very electrical. So I like the ambiguity of it. I'm always interested in what people see in my work, my abstract work. It's always interesting to me because we all, again, experience things through our little brains and bodies and sensory inputs. I'm just picking out these highlights in the, bring these back up a little bit. Because again, things that are brighter and sharper look like they're in front in painting and two-dimensional work, where things in motion in the background are less sharp. I am tempted to break out some white and add in a bit more highlight, but that will sit on top of the glaze again, and I'm back to the same problem, and it can become kind of a vicious cycle where I just go round and round, and that can lead to disaster at times if I don't stop. So that's kind of where this one's at. Is it time to just call it done for what it is and move on to a new painting? I feel like I have experimented and learned and gotten some interesting effects. People I know who like blue paintings really liked it, said it looked great. That was like 3 layers ago. So, and again, feedback is helpful because I know what I think looking at it, but it's always interesting to know what other people see. So please feel free to leave comments. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I think I'm going to wait to sign it, but I think I'm really, really close. Because any more, and I'm going to start getting this blue, deep blue is going to start looking black. It'll lose all its luminosity, and I don't want that. And again, it was, actually I do know what I want to do, because this was bugging me before. Kind of wanted to shade just a tiny, tiny bit, these little sparks with some blue. Again, they need a little bit of shading in some of this, in the green, which again, you're not going to see from a distance, but if you get up close, it's a yummy little addition. I guess it does add a little bit of depth there. That, yeah, it needs a little more three-dimensionality to me. Maybe that's what's been bugging me, is it needs, I kind of ride this edge of an abstract painting, but also things that are I call them biomorphic. They look like things or bodies or body parts or organic things. And I don't know, I'm kind of in this weird place where I'm not really trying to make anything look like anything or look like particular objects. It's really more about the process for me, as I have discussed in other places and will continue to elaborate on as I figure it out. So you can see I've obviously decided I'm going to keep going with this kind of painting in some of the darker areas. Basically, I'm curing all the things that were irritating me when I looked at it. And again, it felt like it was done, but there was something missing. Yeah, I like that. Okay, just a smidge more. Yeah, just a little bit of shading. Make it look kind of three-dimensional, whatever it is. I just like that quality. I cannot really explain, other than the process, where all this comes from. I have never really been one to sit down, rarely, and say, I'm going to paint this and just do it. I often start with an idea, but it rarely stays on track. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. And we'll throw that one on the ADHD pile, which again is why people with ADHD can be extremely creative, but I think it's a delicate walk. And I don't know. I'm finding the more I know my own neurology and how I think and what works and doesn't work for me, that it all makes more sense, and I'm able to do everything in my life really better. It's my saying about finding out adult autism is, it's a lot to know, but it's better to know. But it is a journey for sure, which I know if anyone has had an adult diagnosis, I know you know. We kind of are a bit of a band of travelers. Even if we're very different, there's a common set of occurrences of going through that process that is deeply personal and often hidden from other people, because we don't really change on the outside, we change on the inside. And I've heard repeatedly other people validate my own experience, which is people around you know you don't really see a difference, and they have no idea an earthquake is happening on the inside. And so it can be kind of a lonely, difficult journey at times, but I have yet to meet someone who's been diagnosed who went looking for it. I think it's different probably if you're becoming aware of it and it's not something you necessarily want to know. I don't know. I'm rambling. Again, painting is thinking. It's just this time I'm talking about it to other people, which is a different type of thinking too. So it's funny though, as I'm painting the same, I don't really think while I paint. It actually kind of messes it up. If I get too nervous and too self-conscious, it really works better when it's just a mindless process, which is not possible. You have to use your mind, obviously, to see and move things, but not rational. Yikes. Okay, we're gonna let that sit down there. I just want to gently, actually better than that is mop brush. I'll just kind of blend this in. These areas of blue that I darkened to give it a little depth. It's definitely more French ultramarine now. All right, I feel pretty good about that. Wee bit more over here. I think that is close to done. I keep saying that. The problem is if I want this to be the last coat before signing, I have to make sure everything's how I want it. So, because with the glaze, I have to wet blend everything. So once it dries, then everything will end up on top of it. So this is the, people either love or hate about oil painting, is my guess, is the long process. And I'm looking at every inch, centimeter, however you want to measure it, of the painting. Because for it to be done, I have to be happy with every brush stroke. That's how I paint. Doesn't mean everyone else does. So again, don't assume because how I do something is the right way. It's how I do it. Right now, it'll change. It always does. So I'm just giving this a good look to make sure, so I don't have to come back again. I'll turn it and do the bottom off camera before I clean up. Okay. I think we will leave it there for now.